even Saul and Ari, about what's going on with Christine. Dayton and Brianna are sad and confused, and
the day you decide you don't want to be a family anymore, you better have an asset you can cash out of. Because in the Brown household, love was never the currency, money was. And Christine Brown's new memoir proves it. The financial records are out, and they are absolutely jaw-dropping. Hidden in the pages of her explosive book lies a revelation that flips the sister wives story upside down. A calculated $200,000 Vegas scam that will make you furious. This wasn't just a messy, polygamous marriage gone wrong. According to Christine, it was a well-oiled machine of financial manipulation, disguised as family unity, orchestrated by none other than Kody himself. She writes that what the cameras showed us was only half the truth. Behind the scenes, Kody wasn't the selfless patriarch he pretended to be. He was the director of a money game, and the stakes were his wives' livelihoods. Christine's memoir, Sister Wives, a memoir of faith, family, and finding freedom, dropped early at Barnes & Noble, and it's packed with revelations that fans never saw coming. Buried in those 295 pages is a bombshell so devastating it changes everything we thought we knew about the Vegas years. This isn't speculation. This isn't rumor. Christine drops receipts that expose betrayal on a scale no one expected. While Kody stood on national television preaching about keeping the family united, Christine says he was privately plotting the most manipulative cash grab reality TV has ever seen. He didn't cling to Mary and Janelle out of love or loyalty. He didn't insist Christine keep playing along out of faith or conviction. He did it because he needed the illusion of a big, functioning family. For the show, for the paycheck, and for his own greed. The Vegas move wasn't about new beginnings. It was about turning 4 women into cash machines while he and Robin lived as a monogamous couple in the shadows. Christine describes how he played a cruel balancing act, keeping each wife hopeful, just enough to maintain her loyalty, then pulling back to keep them desperate. It was a cycle, timed and calculated, to keep the cameras rolling and the TLC checks coming. She writes that he'd woo them for brief moments, tossing crumbs of affection, only to retreat once their emotional investment had been secured. It was never about reconciliation. It was about control. But the darkest part of Christine's account is the weaponization of money against the very women who trusted him. She alleges that Kody and Robin worked together to emotionally manipulate Mary into believing they could reconcile, all while plotting to get their hands on her Las Vegas home. Equity. Imagine an entire lifetime of savings, a woman's only real financial safety net, turned into leverage in a cruel game of false promises. Christine says Mary's vulnerability was exploited to fund Kody's vision of power, and the betrayal cut deeper than any divorce papers ever could. And then there's Janelle. Known as the business-minded wife, the one who handled finances, Janelle became another pawn in Kody's financial chessboard. According to Christine, every sweet gesture, every family meeting, every heart-to-heart conversation was tied to Kody's hunger for access to her money. She claims he didn't miss Janelle, he missed her bank account. Every reconciliation attempt was just a strategy to keep her financial resources tethered to him. What makes it even more chilling is Robin's role. Christine doesn't paint her as a bystander. She makes it clear Robin was complicit. While 3 women were emotionally and financially drained, Robin benefited from every dime. Christine calls it the ultimate betrayal, a monogamous marriage funded by the exploitation of polygamy. This isn't just sister wives drama. This is a real-world example of financial predation, manipulation so sophisticated it played out on national television in front of millions of viewers. Every time a wife cried, every time a marriage broke down, it wasn't just a tragedy, it was content. It was business. And Christine has finally pulled back the curtain to show us just how sinister it really was.
I just don't know why Kody's not being supportive. It's just kind of apparent. I don't know. I don't want to give...
Christine's memoir doesn't just hint. It spells out the exact tactics Kody and Robin used to strip Mary of her independence. She writes that the two deliberately dangled false hope of reconciliation at the precise moment Mary was deciding what to do with her Las Vegas home. We're not talking pocket change here. We're talking about potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity, her one chance at true independence, being siphoned away under the disguise of family healing. The timing was no coincidence. These conversations about love and reconnection never appeared randomly. Christine exposes that every reconciliation speech aligned perfectly with Mary's financial crossroad moments. Whenever she had a major financial decision, whether to reinvest her home equity into the family or safeguard her own future, suddenly Kody and Robin were there. The husband who had neglected her for years and the wife who had treated her like a rival were suddenly showering her with attention. To an emotionally starved woman desperate for validation, it felt like a miracle. To Christine, it was a performance. She says she watched Mary melt under the illusion that her voice mattered again, that her opinion counted, that maybe she still had a place in the family. But in truth, that affection was strategic, conditional, and brutally manipulative. Every ounce of kindness was tied to money. When Mary's finances were relevant, she was treated like gold. When her usefulness declined, she was invisible again. And the cruelest twist of all? They managed to convince Mary she wasn't being robbed. She was being a good wife. By framing her home sale, proceeds as an investment in the family's healing, Kody and Robin turned theft into sacrifice, exploitation into devotion. They weaponized her loyalty and made her complicit in her own financial downfall. But if Mary's betrayal was devastating, Christine says Janelle's exploitation was the most insidious of all. Janelle wasn't the fragile, love-starved wife. She was the pragmatic one, the financial brain, the woman who balanced budgets and kept 4 households functioning. She had decades of experience in mortgage rates, tax law, and managing complex family finances. On paper, she should have been the hardest to manipulate, and yet that very competence made her Kody's most valuable long-term target. For 20 years, Janelle was the family's financial backbone. She managed budgets, coordinated expenses, and made sure the Brown empire didn't collapse under its own weight. But Christine reveals Kody twisted Janelle's skills into a trap. Every time she tried to pull away emotionally, suddenly there was an urgent financial meeting that required her expertise. Every time she started focusing on her own independence, Kody would dangle some new family project that only she could manage. He made her financial knowledge feel like a prison. Christine explains how Kody's attempts to reconcile with Janelle weren't about love, they were about money. Whenever Janelle had independent income, whether from real estate, side businesses, or TLC earnings, suddenly Kody was interested in rebuilding their partnership. But the moment her income slowed, his attention disappeared. He didn't want her as a wife, he wanted her as a cash cow. The psychological cruelty ran even deeper. Janelle's identity was built on being useful, on being the one who could keep the family financially afloat. Kody exploited that pride. He made her believe that keeping their finances connected wasn't just smart, it was proof she still mattered. Christine says it was like watching someone use their own strength as a weapon against themselves. And then came the Flagstaff move, a masterclass in manipulation. On the surface, it looked noble. Dayton, Robin's son, needed to move to Flagstaff for college, and the family rallied around his education. What kind of mother or father would refuse to sacrifice for their child's future? What kind of wife would resist a relocation framed as love for a teenager's dreams? It was the perfect cover story, but Christine now unmasks it as something far darker, a massive wealth extraction scheme. The truth, she writes, is that the Flagstaff relocation wasn't about Dayton's education at all. It was about forcing all 4 wives to sell their Las Vegas homes at once, liquidating over $1 million in equity and funneling that money through Kody's control. The urgency around Dayton's enrollment created artificial pressure. The wives had no time to plan carefully, no chance to shop the market. They were pressured to sell quickly, often at less than ideal conditions. Christine reveals how this trap worked. The simultaneous home sales meant each woman was financially destabilized at the same time. That left them reliant on Kody's guidance for reinvestment in Flagstaff. And where was that money directed? Into arrangements that primarily benefited Kody and Robin, leaving the other wives with less stability, less security, and less independence. Even worse, Janelle, the one tasked with project managing the entire move, was unknowingly engineering her own downfall. She coordinated the sales, handled the logistics, and smoothed out every detail, while Kody and Robin used her skills to execute the very plan that exploited her. She wasn't just a victim, She was the architect of her own financial entrapment, because Kody had conditioned her to believe that doing the work meant proving her worth. The manipulation was airtight. Any wife who hesitated was painted as heartless for opposing Dayton's education. Any objection to the rushed sales was cast as selfishness. Kody used the language of family sacrifice to silence dissent, making it impossible to raise practical concerns without looking cruel. Christine strips away the illusion in devastating detail. The Flagstaff move was never about a child's college dream. It was a calculated scheme to strip 4 women of their property, consolidate their equity, and keep Kody and Robyn in control. The story that TLC sold to America was family devotion. The reality, Christine writes, was $1 million con. There was no time for research, no chance for careful planning, and no space for independent financial advice. The wives had no choice but to rely completely on Kody's expertise about Flagstaff property values and investment strategies. And that was exactly the trap. Christine exposes it with chilling precision. This wasn't family support. It was wealth extraction wrapped in the language of sacrifice. The most dangerous predators don't walk in announcing their crimes. They disguise exploitation as love, loyalty, and family unity. And the Brown story is proof. Christine's account doesn't just tarnish Robyn's carefully polished image of the innocent fourth wife, it blows it to pieces. She wasn't a bystander. She was an architect of the con. Christine reveals that Robyn perfected the art of weaponizing fake concern. Publicly, she played mediator, the wife who claimed to understand everyone, who wanted harmony, who could translate Kody for the others. But privately, Christine says Robyn twisted conversations, manipulated emotions, and positioned herself so every financial decision tilted in her favor. She wasn't translating for peace. She was translating for power. The sinister brilliance. Robyn made the other wives complicit in funding their own replacement, while Mary, Christine, and Janelle poured their home equity and TLC earnings into family expenses. Robyn got the exclusive perks, the husband, the stability, the financial security. She lived an almost monogamous marriage, bankrolled by 3 women desperate to keep their place in a family that no longer existed. And it gets darker. Christine writes that every vulnerable moment she shared with Robyn, every tear, every confession, every private fear was twisted and delivered straight to Kody, but not as truth. Robyn reframed these conversations to make Christine look unreasonable, ungrateful, even disloyal. Imagine pouring your heart out to a sister wife, believing she's supporting you, only to realize she's feeding those words back to your husband, like poisoned darts. That's the depth of betrayal Christine describes. But Robyn's masterstroke was gaslighting the wives into believing she was helping. She framed her interference as concern for the family, her manipulation as wanting fairness, her intelligence gathering as being a good mediator. The performance was so convincing that even Christine admits she once believed Robyn was on her side. In reality, Robyn wasn't living plural marriage at all. She was living the high life of a monogamous queen funded by polygamous prophets. This revelation cuts deepest because it shatters the illusion fans clung to for years. Robyn never actually lived polygamy. She got Kody's time, attention, and affection, while her sister wives got crumbs. Occasional visits meant only to keep them financially invested. Robyn played house while the others financed her fairy tale. That's not sisterhood. That's exploitation. And then Christine pulls back the final curtain. This wasn't just about money, it was about fame. Kody's addiction to TLC's paychecks transformed him from a flawed man into a financial predator. Every family decision became filtered through one ruthless question: how will this affect the show? Not his wives, not his children, the show. Christine reveals that Kody became obsessed with public perception. He devoured online comments, exploded in anger at criticism, and punished any wife or child who made him look bad. Loyalty tests became the new family rule. If Christine spoke honestly on camera, Kody would withdraw from her children. If the kids didn't perform happiness for the cameras, he blamed their mothers. His obsession with image eclipsed his ability to be a father. The most heartbreaking proof? Isabel's surgery. Kody refused to travel, claiming he couldn't be gone for weeks, but Christine exposes the real reason. He was worried about how his absence or presence might play on television. And when Isabel's siblings showed up to support her, Kody lashed out. Furious, they made him look heartless by comparison. His daughter's health wasn't his priority. His image was. Fame turned every tear, every fight, every breakdown into content. Christine reveals that arguments were reenacted for cameras, heartbreak replayed until it was dramatic enough for TV. The wives weren't living marriages anymore. They were performing pain for Kody's paycheck. The Flagstaff move was the clearest example. Disrupting four households wasn't about unity. It was about creating fresh storylines, generating drama, and keeping TLC's contracts flowing. Christine writes that Kody's greed had swallowed everything: his marriage, his fatherhood, even his soul. But the most shocking twist? Christine's final realization. She wasn't just unloved, she was paying to be unloved. Every dollar she earned from TLC, every financial contribution she made, was subsidizing her own mistreatment. She was funding the lifestyle that humiliated her on national television. That's when she snapped. Her decision to leave wasn't a grand emotional explosion. It was brutally practical. She realized the math no longer made sense. She was literally investing in her own abuse, teaching her children that loyalty meant financial self-destruction, modeling for her daughters that women should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention they can buy. And she refused to let that lesson stand. Christine walked away not just from Kody, but from an entire financial system built on exploitation. By leaving, she destroyed the central lie that kept the show alive, that this was a functioning family working through challenges. Without her willingness to perform heartbreak, the empire collapsed. And the legal implications? Massive. Christine's allegations outline a paper trail of manipulation, coerced financial decisions, unequal earnings, and possible tax violations. Experts could interpret this as systematic financial fraud disguised as family unity. If proven, it's not just immoral, it's criminal. For Mary and Janelle, Christine's revelations are a roadmap. They can now see the patterns, the cycles, the traps. And for Kody and Robyn, it's the death knell of their empire. Their entire lifestyle was funded by women who no longer believe the lies. Christine's courage doesn't just end a marriage. It exposes the blueprint of financial predators everywhere. It proves that sometimes the most radical act of love, for yourself, for your children, is refusing to keep paying for your own suffering. And now, the question lingers. With the empire collapsing and the receipts piling up, will Kody and Robyn finally face consequences, not just in the court of public opinion, but in a court of law?